to my channel, Luna Noir Tarot, and this mini-series, Teaching Tarot. So we're pretty far into this series now, and I'm really excited that I've managed to get this far. And I want to thank those of you who have continued to watch this series, have found this series useful, and for those of you who are embarking on your tarot journey, it really is a magical journey, and I'm just so excited for you guys that you are embarking on this wonderful journey. Alright, so we are on the next set of cards. We are coming towards the end of the major arcana. So today's cards, we have Temperance, the Devil, and the Tower card. So starting at Temperance, so this card is the 14th trump card, and it really depicts like balance, patience, moderation. It's a very calm card. Temperance is very linked to like emotions. Surprisingly, it's not a water card, so its element is not water, it's actually fire. Which when I was first learning tarot, I thought that was quite surprising, just because there's water in the actual like illustration of the card. It's about emotions and balancing your emotions. And so I was expecting its element to be water, but it's not. However, its ruling planet is Jupiter, and Jupiter and Neptune are linked to Pisces. So there is that connection there, but ultimately, no, its element is fire. So as always, let's take a look at the illustration of this card and see what we can pull out from the different colors and the different pictorials in this card. So you can see that this person, it looks to be an angel or some sort of spiritual higher being. This being has wings, 2 cups where she's pouring water from one to another. There's a beautiful scene of nature behind her, and it's almost like she's tapping into this elixir of life. That's kind of the imagery that comes in my mind when I see this. You know, she's standing by this bed of water. It looks like a small river or something. It seems like a small body of water. It doesn't seem very big, but it's almost like she's tapped into this divine source of water, right? And we've heard legends and tales about like the elixir of life, certain streams being like magical. You know, if you're really into all of that kind of mythical and magical stuff, even if it's not, real and it's just fiction, if you're into that stuff like I am, then you've probably heard about like the elixir of life and just all these magical streams that hold like healing powers in the water. And that's kind of the imagery that comes to my mind when I see this card. So outside of the water part of this card, you can also see that behind her there's what looks like an open field. Towards the back left, you can see it almost looks like, I want to say, mountains, and then there's like a yellow explosion kind of thing. It seems a bit almost volcanic, which is probably where the fire element of this card comes from. There's a lot of yellow in this card, blue, greens, very earthy colors. And the angel, or this spiritual being itself, is very serene, very peaceful, very calm in what she's doing. And there's not really much in terms of what's going on. There isn't a lot of activity in this card, but the colors and the imagery come through quite strongly. The whole peaceful element comes from the nature around her as well. and the fact that she's by water. Water tends to have a calming quality. Blue is also associated with water, but blue is also a calming color, or is associated with calmness. So there is this whole tranquil serenity about this card. Now, the general meanings of this card are alchemy, which you can kind of see by her tipping the water from one cup to another. It gives you a sense of alchemy. Balance. Connecting with spirit guides. So again, because she's a spiritual being, it's about you connecting to your own spirit guides, listening to that inner voice. It's about harmony, which again comes through with this peaceful serenity scene of the card. Seeking divine intervention. So this could be in the form of prayer, reaching out to a higher source. It depends really what your religious affiliations are, if you have any. Some people aren't religious, but they're spiritual. So it just really depends what your affinity is, but you can seek divine intervention in many different ways, and it's just pointing towards seeking divine intervention in some way. Moderation and balanced emotions. So usually when I see this card come out, I kind of associate it with, in the upright, that somebody is a lot more balanced in their emotions. They've kind of ridden this wave of change, or any kind of heavy emotions that have been coming up in their life. They've kind of worked through them. They've worked on their inner self, the inner emotions that come through. And they've kind of let go of any kind of emotional baggage that they have, and now they're a lot more serene and peaceful and calm. So that's the kind of energy that comes through for me when I see this card. Now in the reverse, this card can mean disharmony, imbalance, lack of patience, possibly an onset of illness. It really depends on what the other cards around it say. And as I mentioned, its element is fire, its ruling planet is Jupiter. Okay, so let's move on to the Devil card. So the Devil, as you can see here in the middle, this card generally tends to have quite an aggressive, aggressive energy to it. And again, this was another card I was very surprised with, because its element is earth, and I expected its element to be fire. You can see fire in the imagery itself. It just has a very aggressive kind of red energy about it. And so for me, when I was learning about this card as well, I was very surprised that, its element was earth. And I'll be honest with you, through this imagery, I find it difficult to see the properties of earth if I'm basing it purely on the illustrations. But there is a lot of grounding to the Devil card. The earth sign is a lot about being grounded and just being one with the universe, and in some ways there is a lot of grounding that comes out of the results of a Devil card. So I do see the connection there. Now, if we take a look at the illustrations, we can see the whole background is black. There is a creature, and I say that because of its feet that look almost bird-like, and look more claw-like than actual feet. So it's like he's half bird animal. There's almost a face appearing over here. If you look quite closely, you would have to look at the card quite closely, but I'm almost seeing like a bird-like face, but perhaps others of you will look at this and it would just look like a pattern, or maybe it would look like fur or something like that, like animal skin or like animal fur. And then there's like two people here, they have like devil horns. and they have like these what look like tails, and they're like linked and connected and almost locked to this being. And on his head he has like a ram head. So again, when I saw this ram head, for me it just reminded me of Aries, and again it was giving me that fire energy because Aries is a fire sign. So I am very surprised that this element is earth, because there is a lot of fiery energy coming out of this card. So again, there isn't much by way of storyline in this card, but I know that whenever the devil and the tower comes out, a lot of people panic. I'll be honest, I feel like these cards get a bad rep. Now, the devil card, let's be honest, is not the prettiest card to come out. And generally when someone says the devil, they're not really saying nice things, or there's not like a positive connotation linked to the devil. However, as tarot readers, you have to look beyond the basic and the general. That's part of your art, and your skill is to interpret things that people can't necessarily see. If we only went by the face value of these cards, then technically everyone is a tarot reader. The thing that differentiates you from just a person looking at these cards and makes you a true reader of these cards is the fact that you can interpret these cards to create a story, or to see a story. A lot of these messages, they'll come in bits, right? So even if you have channeled messages along with the cards, they will come in bits. You'll hear certain words or names or numbers, but you're not going to get full sentences from your spirit guides. They're not going to kind of tell you a story in your head and you just regurgitate it. It's not like that. It's certain triggers that you will see that you will then make a connection to. So that's why we use different parts of our readings to interpret. So we'll hear these channeled messages, so we'll hear a word, and then we'll look at the cards, and then we'll look at the imagery in these cards, and we'll make connections. So it's almost like you're playing dot to dot, where you're making these different connections to then overall create this storyline. And it's not really a creation, it's basically you revealing a storyline that's already there, but you are connecting the dots. It's like clues, and you're like this detective, and you have all these clues, and then basically you put them together and it reveals the full message, for your person that you're reading for. So it's really important, I think, to not just focus on one part of the tarot spread. You don't want to just focus on the type of spread you're doing, or, as I said, just channel messages or just the cards, because as a tarot reader, you want to make these connections with the different parts of your reading to create this overall picture. So everything is important. So if we look at the general meanings of this card, so this card can mean various things, but the general meanings are fear, feeling trapped, materialism, temptation, which is quite a popular one when the devil card comes out. And generally, when we think of the devil, we do think of like temptations, confusion, easily swayed, and addictive behavior. Now in the reverse, it can mean breaking away from these addictions. Sometimes it can mean divorce. I guess the devil can also mean endings of some kind. So, if the reading lends to divorce, it could mean that, but I wouldn't say that, as soon as a devil card comes out, that's it. It's a divorce. Like, I would say this is one of the smaller meanings of this card. And again, you look at the cards around the card to actually figure out what messages you want to say. Freedom from restraint, lack of fear or confidence, no longer confused, so you see things clearly. And again, as I said, the devil card gets a bad rep, but whenever I see it, I think that, it's coming out because there's an ending that has to occur, or there's something that needs to come to light. Like, if someone has an addiction or somebody has some sort of bad habits that are harming them, they need to be brought to light so that they can be changed or resolved. And it's for the betterment of that person. So whenever I do see this card, I think it's a good card to get because it's telling you that something is wrong, and the fact it comes straight after the Temperance card, which is all about balanced emotions, to then go into the devil, it's like a complete flip reverse. It's like with the devil card, you're basically all over the place in terms of your emotions. You are easily swayed and just falling into like addictive behavior or just temptations, and it means that you've fallen short somewhere and that you need to be pushed back onto the right track. And so it's almost like an awakening, it's like an eye-opener. And so when I do see the devil card, I'm not one to panic. When I see it, I think, okay, great, it's highlighting something that's not right in my life and it needs to be changed. So then it leads perfectly into the Tower card. Now, before I talk about the Tower card, the element, as I mentioned, of the devil is earth, but a lot of fire energy does come through this card. Its ruling planet is Saturn, and we'll move into the Tower card now. So as I said, it's a very good lead from the devil into the Tower, because the Tower is all about danger, crisis, and sudden change. So it's almost like, the devil card is telling you something isn't right. It's like an alert card, like there's something that's not right and it needs to be changed. And then the Tower card comes in with this sudden change and forces you to change it. So it's almost like the devil gives you a warning and it says, this thing needs to be changed, or there's certain things that need to be changed in your life. They're not serving you well, they're not doing anything for you. In some ways, they might even be harmful to you. And then if you don't listen to the warnings, or you don't heed the warnings and do something, then the Tower is going to come in and force you to do it anyway. So that's how I see the connection between all of these cards. So if we look at the Tower card, again, it's following this theme of the black background, lightning, fire, and this one's element is actually fire. So the fire being here is very apt and just very connected. And then it's like a tower, people jumping out, it's like chaos. As I said, there isn't a lot going on in terms of like the actual pictures, because it's just a tower, it's two people jumping out, there's some lightning and a bit of fire, and then a splattering of clouds, right? So in terms of the actual imagery, there's not a lot, but it's aggressive imagery. It's like people jumping out of a tower to almost like their death. There's fire, there's lightning, there's darkness in the background. So they're very aggressive images, right? So this is where it talks about danger, where it talks about crisis, where it talks about sudden change. So the general meaning of this card can mean accidents, destruction, liberation, sudden change, karmic lessons, and endings. Okay, and they mean endings so that you can start a new beginning, right? So again, the Tower card gets a bad rep, just like the Devil card, but I genuinely believe that this card is very telling. I also think that it's very good because it means something that's not serving you anymore is ending, so that you can get closure and allow for something new to come in. Often when this card comes out, it's telling me that you are stopping something from coming through. So something better wants to come through into your life, but you are so afraid to let go of what you currently have that you are almost blocking the good from coming in. So the Tower has to come in and shake it up for you. Sometimes we know the truth, but we don't want to accept it to ourselves. So we play a little role play game, or we lie to ourselves, or we tell ourselves it's really not half as bad as we think it is. But really, it is. And, sometimes we need like a really aggressive shake-up from the universe to make us realize that we need to walk away, or that we need to change this thing that we're continuously lying to ourselves about. So that's kind of where the Tower card comes in. It is about a cleansing of sorts, and yeah, it will come in aggressively, but as I said, it gets more of a bad rep than it needs to. I think that it's a good thing. I think that this cleansing needs to happen so that better things can come into your life. And so whenever I see this card, I in some ways celebrate it because, I want to constantly change and be living a better life if I can. So if the Tower card has to do something to shake me up so that I can live a better life, then I'm all for it. I mean, it's like short-term pain for long-term gain. So in the reverse, this card can mean illness, losses, obstacles, feeling stuck, and not willing to accept something. As I mentioned, its element is fire, and its ruling planet is Mars. So it's like a double fire whammy, okay, with the Mars planet and the fire element. So it is a very aggressive card. You can see that from just the imagery and the kind of energies that come off it. But as I said, sometimes we need a real shake-up and something very aggressive to come in for us to be able to open our eyes and wake up and smell the coffee and, really get closure and move on so that we can allow better things to come into our lives. Okay guys, so that was this week's cards. Next week we will be covering the star, the moon, and the sun. Alright guys, I hope you found it useful. Have a great weekend, have a great week, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.